My loving husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer. To cope with the sorrow, I threw myself into my work. One day, a man claiming to be a lawyer approached me. Your husband has submitted a request for $5 million in damages. Are you having an affair while he's sick in the hospital? He asked smugly, presenting photos he claimed were evidence of my infidelity. I was stunned. I have no idea what you're talking about. We've already gathered evidence proving that you're the woman too busy dating to care for her sick husband, the man continued arrogantly. Feeling as if my entire life was being challenged, I decided to take him to my home to show him the truth. Along the way, I discreetly signaled to a middle-aged neighbor. My name is Melissa, and I'm 27 years old. I currently run multiple web media platforms and make a living from it. Sitting in my living room, I muttered to myself as I stared at the computer screen filled with text. What should I do about this? Melissa, let's take a break, my husband Kevin said, coming out of the kitchen and handing me a steaming cup of coffee. Thank you, I smiled at my partner, who sat beside me. Kevin is not just my husband, he's also my work partner. I've always loved writing, so I started as a web writer during college. But after a few months, I hit a wall due to my inexperience. A friend introduced me to another web writer, who would later become my husband Kevin. He taught me everything from writing skills to how to get work. Initially, we were just colleagues, but our relationship gradually deepened. We became indispensable to each other, transitioning from colleagues to beloved partners. After graduating from college, we went into business independently as web writers and started to run and operate web media platforms. Our relationship evolved from partners to a unique family. Now, as a married couple, we work from home and are always together, both for work and in our private lives. When I tell my friends, they ask, don't you get tired of being together all the time? But we find it comfortable, thanks to Kevin's calm and gentle personality. I never doubted that my life with my loving husband would continue forever. One day, prompted by a friend, we decided to go for cancer screenings. We often joked about our good health, but with a friend's relative getting diagnosed with cancer, we thought it was a good time to get checked. As it turned out, I was fine, but Kevin needed further testing. By this point, a sense of unease had already set in. Kevin kept saying, I'm fine, nothing's going to be wrong, Kevin reassured me, but I couldn't shake off my worry. Then the detailed test results came back. Kevin had cancer. Moreover, the doctor told us it was at an advanced stage because it was detected late. I collapsed right there and then. Kevin had cancer and it was advanced. We'd had yearly checkups and nothing had ever seemed off. Sure, he had some cold-like symptoms once in a while, but Kevin always said, I can work from home, and never really went to the doctor. If only I had noticed something back then. If only I had forced him to go to the doctor. Regrets kept flooding my mind, but then the overwhelming fear that he was going to be gone hit me, and I couldn't think of anything else. Kevin was admitted to the hospital immediately, and I visited him every day during my work breaks. When I came to see him, Kevin always greeted me with his calm smile. He would even happily ask about the progress of our work that we both put so much effort into. Seeing his face made me think, I have to protect this job no matter what. And even as I wiped away tears, I kept working. But every time I let my guard down, the fear that Kevin might be gone consumed me. To distract myself from the sorrow, I took on a part-time job at a nearby supermarket in addition to our web media work. Days went by like this, and a little time passed. As usual, I visited Kevin in the hospital, finished my shift at the supermarket, and was on my way home. When I get home, I need to do the web work and also clean the house, I thought, planning out my next tasks. Suddenly, the world in front of me started spinning, and I sat down in a panic. What's happening? I feel sick, I wondered. My vision continued to spin, and cold sweat wouldn't stop. Feeling helpless, I sat there, and suddenly I heard a surprise, "Huh?" A concerned person was hurriedly approaching. A gentle hand was placed on my slumped shoulder, and a kind voice asked, "Are you all right?" Looking up, I saw an unfamiliar middle-aged woman looking at me with concern. "I'm feeling a bit unwell, but I'll be okay," I tried to assure her. I mumbled, trying to stand up despite my spinning vision, but the woman who caught me said, "Come this way." She almost dragged me along to some place. We arrived at a familiar suburban house. "Where is this?" I asked, gazing vaguely at the house. "This is my home. Rest here for a while," she said, taking my hand and leading me inside. Despite it being our first meeting, her warm hand oddly comforted me, and I followed her in. We sat in the living room sipping water, and then she encouraged me to lie down on the sofa. Even as I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, she wet a towel in cold water, wrung it out, and placed it on my forehead. She also covered me with a blanket. A little while later, my vision stabilized and my sweating stopped. Slowly sitting up from the sofa, I faced the concerned woman and asked, "Can I move now?" I thanked her and added, "By the way, I realized I never introduced myself. Sorry about that." Upon hearing this, the woman smiled with relief and introduced herself as well. Her name was Laura, and she lived here with her husband. I began to say, "I also have a husband," but an image of Kevin lying in bed interrupted me. Noticing my hesitation, Laura said, "It's okay if it's hard to talk about it," and asked why I was sitting on the side of the road. "Actually, my husband is sick." I slowly told her about Kevin's illness, which I hadn't even shared with friends, and how I'd been overexerting myself with work to distract from the sadness. Laura hugged me tightly as I choked up and finally shed tears. "It's hard, isn't it?" she said, crying along with me. Later, I found out that Laura's house was very close to mine. What's more, our house was apparently known in the neighborhood as the wealthy couple's house due to its size. Chuckling to myself, I suddenly remembered. When I used to walk around the neighborhood with Kevin, people would often strike up friendly conversations with us. It feels like things have become distant since Kevin got hospitalized. Laura told me, "People thought you two had separated and didn't know how to approach you." Through meeting Laura, my days slowly started to change. I got to know the neighbors I'd previously avoided, and we started gathering at our houses for tea. Every time I struggled to watch Kevin's health deteriorate, Laura was always there to touch my hand and encourage me with her warm touch. Then one day, Kevin received permission for a temporary return home, marking a long-awaited moment. A temporary return home? These words signaled the last moments we'd get to spend with Kevin. I decided to make the most of this time and fill it with smiles. "So, Kevin, now that you're home, is there anything special you want to do?" I asked. The first thing he said was, "I'd like to see Laura." While Kevin was hospitalized, I had told him how Laura and the neighbors had been taking good care of me during my daily visits. To fulfill Kevin's wish, I let Laura know we'd be stopping by on our way. A quick glance at Kevin revealed a certain resolve in his face as he stared straight ahead. We arrived at Laura's, who welcomed us with her ever-present warm smile. She took Kevin's hand and said, "You really are loved," her eyes meeting mine as she smiled. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I told Kevin, "Well, you know," our eyes meeting, his face a mix of laughter and tears. During a break in the conversation, as I was about to head back to the living room from the restroom, I overheard Kevin's earnest voice from the other side of the door. I listened closely and realized he was talking about me. "Please look after Melissa when I'm gone." Hearing those words, I felt a stinging pain at the back of my nose and realized tears were falling. So that's why Kevin wanted to come here. Hearing Laura's gentle, "Of course," I couldn't stop my tears. Not much later, my husband Kevin drew his last breath. While I was prepared for it, the sense of loss hit me harder than I had imagined. Laura and our neighbors kept encouraging me during my grief. After some time had passed, a renewed sense of purpose pushed me to resume my career. I even continued my part-time job at the supermarket, thinking I needed to keep moving forward. Life went on just like that for about 2 years. One day, as I finished my shift at the supermarket and stretched my tired body, a voice came from behind. "Excuse me," startled, I turned around to see a serious-looking man wearing glasses. Did he lose his way? Without much thought, I asked, "Can I help you?" Clearing his throat, the man smiled softly and spoke, "I apologize for the sudden intrusion. I'm a lawyer. You're Melissa, correct? May I speak with you?" A lawyer? What could he possibly want with me? Though I was puzzled, I agreed to listen. "Sure. You see, your late husband Kevin has left you a settlement of $5 million. I was surprised when the man mentioned Kevin's name, and even more startling was the word settlement, almost causing me to drop the bag I was holding. "What? No, there must be some mistake. Ma'am, we have all the evidence. While your husband was in the hospital, you've been having an affair, haven't you?" The man smirked and pulled out his smartphone, showing me a photo. "What is this?" The photo showed a man and a woman, arms linked, walking away from the camera. I have to admit, the woman in the photo bore a slight resemblance to me, but it was definitely a case of mistaken identity. That's not me, and I don't know that man. Besides, my husband passed away 2 years ago. I laid out the facts and was about to walk away when the man suddenly raised his voice to stop me. Lies about him being dead won't work. We already know you've been dating around while neglecting your sick husband. I was stunned. I remembered the days when I was rushing to Kevin's hospital every day and working nonstop. What could this guy possibly know about me? I wondered. Isn't it common sense for a real lawyer to offer a business card? Shouldn't he have notified me through documents or a phone call rather than meeting me in person? I shook my tired head and stared at the man. He wasn't going to back down. Realizing we wouldn't reach a conclusion, I decided it would be quicker to just show him. "Please come this way," I said, inviting the man into my home. In hindsight, it was a bold move, but I felt emotionally charged, like he was negating my entire life. As I walked home with the man, I crossed paths with Laura, who was holding the shopping bag. Laura looked surprised but understood something when I raised my palm. She acknowledged and returned the gesture. I opened the front door and ushered the man inside. Clearly thinking he'd successfully manipulated me, the man enthusiastically said, "Let's discuss the paperwork inside." Ignoring him, I led the way to a certain room. "Please come in," I said. It was a room with a memorial altar, pictures of a smiling Kevin from when he was healthy displayed on it. "Wait, he really is dead," the man said, his face pale. "My husband is no longer in this world, so your claim for compensation is simply impossible," I said, adding internally, he would never have done such a thing even if he were alive. Noticing the man claiming to be a lawyer glancing around, he muttered under his breath, "That's not what I heard. This can't be right." He then casually pulled out his mobile phone to check something. I subtly peeked at the screen from behind and saw a photo of a vibrant Kevin taken before his battle with illness. "What? What's the meaning of this?" I demanded, unnerved that this man had a photo of my loved one. The man started talking hastily, as if making an excuse. According to him, he had purchased information about me and Kevin, who were known as a wealthy couple in the neighborhood, from a man claiming to be an informant. His intention was to scam us. The information said the husband of the wealthy couple was in the hospital, and the wife was emotionally vulnerable. Moreover, the informant had tried to squeeze more money out of the man by feeding him a lie that your wife is cheating on you, even providing fake evidence photos to back up the claim. I had no idea he was dead. That guy tricked me. The irony of the scammer himself being scammed left me sighing in disbelief. Then the man, who had been mumbling to himself, stood up straight and looked at me with a creepy smile, saying, "Well, if I'm caught, I'm caught." A shiver ran down my spine, and I broke into a cold sweat. Just as the man took a step toward me, the sound of hurried footsteps came from the entrance, and a moment later, several officers burst in, shouting, "Police!" The tension I'd been unconsciously holding released, and I collapsed on the spot. Thank God they made it in time, I thought, recalling the moment when I crossed paths with Laura on the street a few minutes earlier. In reality, the hand I'd raised to Laura wasn't just a simple greeting. After Kevin's death, Laura had taught me the SOS hand signal, a raised palm with a clenched thumb, saying, even without words, you can say, "Help me." Betting that the signal would get through, I used it. Probably understating my SOS, Laura must have called the police. Staring at Kevin's photo on the altar, I silently apologized in my heart. "I'm sorry for putting you in harm's way." In the photo, Kevin seemed to be smiling as if to say, "It can't be helped." The arrested man, upon questioning, turned out to have committed multiple frauds before and would likely serve a fairly long prison sentence. I also heard that the notorious informant had been caught. A few days later, when I visited Laura's place with a thank you gift, she scolded me, "You shouldn't let a suspicious man into your house." Laura had noticed my SOS and was going to intervene, but decided it was better to let the police handle it. Then she gently tapped me on the head as if to imprint her words. "Kevin asked me to look out for you, so please don't do anything dangerous from now on." At those words, tears welled up in my eyes. Ever since then, I've been living happy days, helped by Laura and the folks in the neighborhood. Today, I put my hands together in front of the photo of Kevin on the altar. Even in a world without you, there are plenty of people who help me. You can rest easy, I whispered to myself. When I gently opened my eyes, there was a comforting smile in Kevin's photo that seemed to watch over me. Smiling back, I said, "All right, let's get to work today," and stood up with enthusiasm.